Crazy religious ex-boyfriend stalks me at night. In college a while ago, I got into a relationship with a guy. He was fine until he found Jesus. He quickly went crazy, claiming demons spoke to him, trying to buy weapons from some shady friends we had, fantasizing about how he would hurt people, and becoming incredibly controlling and physically abusive, nearly killing me a few times. Needless to say, I got the fuck out. After a few death threats and really crazy behaviors, he left me alone for a while. And I thought, that was that. I was heading to my dorm after a meeting one night when I decided to pass it and go to the student union, which was right down the street, to get some ice cream. As I passed the dorm, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and I thought I saw someone in a white shirt duck behind a big signboard. I kept walking, listening carefully. I heard something move and whipped around again. There, a person his size, staring at me from behind a tree. I couldn't see very well, but it really looked like him. I was mildly freaked out by then, but then just walked a little faster. I'd hear the occasional footsteps and breathing behind me, but I didn't dare to stop or let on that I knew someone, probably him, was there. I know he owned a gun and would likely put a bullet into me given he had the chance. He was that psycho and upset that I dared to break up with him. I walked all the way to the union and got some ice cream and just sat there in the store eating, unwilling to go back out into the unlit street in case it was my crazy armed ex. I still hadn't mustered the nerve to head back when my phone buzzed. My heart just fell out of my chest when I saw the message. It was some of my friends, a sweet couple. They'd been walking way behind me when they saw something that alarmed them enough to text me. "Your ex is walking around the street." They called me before I could even text them back. "Where are you? Your ex is prowling around near your dorm. He was coming back from the direction of the union. I think he had a gun. Was he with you? What's going on?" Panicked, I assured that I had not been with him, but someone who looked like him had been following me, and I was at the union and was too scared to go back alone. They practically yelled at me to stay there and not go anywhere, and that they were coming. A few minutes later, they came running into the union, breathless, wide-eyed, asking me why he was by my dorm and what had happened. This was possibly what scared me most of all. The boyfriend guy, who is a black belt in karate and is never scared, looked absolutely terrified. He was coiled into some kind of fighting stance and looking around wildly, afraid that my ex would appear with his gun. They told me they were taking me back to my dorm and calling the cops. They sandwiched me between them, and we walked back to my dorm as quickly as we dared, the boyfriend walking in front and yelling into the darkness that my ex had better not try anything. I let the two of them into my dorm, and we went up to my room, where my roommates put in a frantic call to the police. As we peeked out the windows facing the street and the side of the dorm, there he was, lurking in the trees to the side of the dorm. Looking up, a streetlight reflected something in his hand, something shiny. I saw him tug at the .22 I realized that he was carrying and looked up. We locked eyes, and I saw something, this kind of rage in his eyes that froze me. In that moment, I knew he was really out to kill me and my friends, and I had foiled him this time. He quickly turned and ran away through the trees. We didn't know whether he would come back and try to break in or something, so we called the police again, and lo and behold, sirens within minutes, and officers with guns drawn combing the area. They caught him a few hours later, still with the .22 in hand. He confessed he was indeed trying to kill me if he had had the chance, but he didn't want to take pot shots at me with my friends there. Apparently, since I'd broken up with him, I was given over to Satan, and he had a duty to make sure I died and went to hell. Of course, he went to jail and later to a mental hospital, and I moved out of that dorm a week later. I just couldn't live with the thought that he could break out and come after me again. I got some cop friends to keep an eye out on my roommates until they move out too. I was never really the same after that. I was so afraid and paranoid for years and years. Now I can be out and about without any fear. But I still have nightmares about him staring at me through the trees, gun in hand, and rage in his eyes. Creepy Satanic X. This may not seem creepy to you, but it freaked me out for a long time. At the beginning of January 2014, I met this guy on Omegle. He said his name was Valentine, but liked to be called Connor. He lived in Texas, and he was my age. We chatted for a while, and right off the bat he was telling me how ugly he was, and how his mother slapped him around, and how he hated his little brother because of how rude he was. Being the overly compassionate and sensitive person I am, I felt bad for him, and that day we began dating. He told me he was a Satanist, and I didn't really care, since I firmly believe in choosing whatever religion you're most comfortable with. Honestly, I think I should have took that as a warning. We were together 3 months, and I got fed up with his bullshit when he told me he was driving to my state to see me and then stood me up. In our first month, we were on a Skype call and he was in a dark closet with a single lit black candle, and he was reading demonic spells off of a notebook. When I broke up with him, he didn't contact me for months, and one day he did. He called me. I was a little weirded out by it, but I answered with a polite, "Hello." "What are you doing?" It seemed like a fairly nice question, so no flags were raised. I replied with, watching." He cut me off mid-sentence. "Cool. I miss you." I kinda rose a bit of an eyebrow at that, and just shook it off. "Oh, cool." I didn't know how to respond. "You know I ran away 5 times to go to your house, but my mom caught me every time. I still have the bear you sent me for Valentine's Day, remember it? I still sleep with it, even though some relative fucking dog tore it up." His voice was a bit manic. "Oh, that's too bad, I'm sorry," I replied, a little creeped out. "I want to see you. I'll run away again for you." I was now on edge and replied with a quick lie. "I don't know if my new boyfriend would like that." Valentine got really quiet and then hung up. I looked at my phone in confusion and shrugged and went back to watching what I was watching. Summer break was almost at the end now, and Valentine called me again. "Hey." He sounded weird. "Hey," I replied, preoccupied to really pay attention to him. "I really need to tell you something. I'm going to do something really bad," he whispered. I stopped what I was doing and listened to him. "What's wrong?" I asked. "When school starts again, I'm going to shoot up my school." I almost didn't believe him at first, so I asked what he meant. "Me and my friends have some guns now. When school starts, we're going to school up my middle school and kill everyone." I think Satan will be happy with my deeds. I immediately began talking him down, and at the same time I was texting my mother everything he said. After a half hour of talking down to him, he got quiet and asked about my boyfriend. I lied and said we had broken up, and Valentine seemed to be happy about it. He said that he wouldn't shoot anyone and hung up. My mother and I were debating whether or not to call the police, and ended up not doing it. There was never any middle school shootings in Texas, so he never did it. But after that, he hasn't contacted me since. So creepy, Satanic X, let's never meet again. Psycho X, who tried to kill me and my family. New subscriber. But I've been listening to Reddit's Let's Not Meet through various YouTube channels, so I thought I should share one of my many experiences with a Psycho X with you guys. So my Psycho X stalker story happened on the west coast of the United States about 11 years ago. I was a 23-year-old female living in my very first apartment. I was single, working part-time, and going to college, so I was more focused on getting my life together than dating. Valentine's Day was approaching, and of course I didn't have a special someone in my life at the time. So a coworker of mine thought it would be a good idea to hook me up with a single guy that she knew, named Jack. Jack and I talked on the phone for a few days before meeting in person. When we eventually met, Jack bought flowers, candy, and told me immediately how attracted he was to me, even saying that I'm his girl now. It struck me as a kind of odd thing to say, as it was our first meeting, but I thought he was really handsome. He was 6'1", he had a gorgeous smile and seemed really sweet, so I just brushed off his oddness. We hung out a few weeks, and during that time, Jack started acting very strange and clingy. He was very quiet and liked to ask questions about me and told me a lot about his personal life. But besides a simple hi, he basically ignored and never spoke to any of my family or friends who came to visit often. He always wanted to occupy my time, wanted to know what I was doing all the time, and would get angry if I was busy or had other plans. He wasn't physically abusive, but really possessive. He even told me he loved me a month or so of knowing me, but I laughed it off, thinking he was just joking around. One night, he actually got on his knees to propose to me. I told him we've only been knowing each other for a few months, and we should wait until we're both ready, and besides, he didn't even have a ring. He said he was ready to get married as soon as possible. We can go to the courthouse now and he'll buy me a ring later. No thank you. If it's meant to be, we'll get married when the time comes. The very next week, he gets back on his knees, proposes again, still no ring, and says he was ready now. At this point, I started to freak out. Not only was he clingy, but he was moving way too fast for me. I mean, we've only been knowing each other for a few months. I was still busy with work and school, so I told him maybe we should take a break from hanging out for a while. He got this really weird look on his face and got really quiet, but eventually started smiling and agreed with me that we should take a break. A few days of not hearing from him, I came home to find him sitting on my staircase. I asked him what he was doing there, and he just said, "Waiting for you," and smiled. After an awkward moment of silence, I told him he needed to go home. He got up and left, but then he started to randomly stop by my place. If I was there, I pretended not to be. He would knock for about 30 minutes, leave for a few minutes, and then come back. He started waiting on my staircase for me to get home, so I had to hide at my neighbor's apartment and wait until he eventually left. He called my cell nonstop, and I just ignored him. After a few months of this, he just stopped all of a sudden. I was completely relieved, like he finally got the point. About 3 months of not hearing from him, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I answered it, and it was Jack. He wanted to know how I was doing and wanted to see me. He also said he told his mother about me and that she wanted to meet me too. I got super creeped out and upset, and I told him no, lose my number and stop calling me. I guess he heard the opposite because he started randomly knocking on my door again. He knocked on my door a couple of times, and each time I had a friend or family member tell him to leave and not come back, and each time he smiled and said, "Okay." The third time he came over was the last straw for me. I had my best friend tell him I wasn't there. I was, but I was hiding. He asked her if he could wait for me inside my apartment until I got back. She told him no, and then he tried to push his way in. My friend called my name and I ran out to help her shut the door. Heart racing, I told him I was going to call the police if he didn't leave and never come back again. He mumbled something through the door and then I could hear him walking down the stairs. I ended up not calling the police that night, but I regret that decision to this day. Jump forward to about 5 or 6 months later. It was a bright sunny Saturday afternoon. Two of my younger sisters, 17 and 14, were visiting. I was laying in my bed because I had a major migraine. Since I lived alone, I had gotten used to leaving my bedroom door open so I could hear everything. I could hear them watching and talking about Vanilla Sky, the Tom Cruise movie. I also heard kids laughing and playing outside, nothing weird whatsoever. I took more aspirin and dozed off again, but was awakened shortly by a loud bam. At first, I thought maybe a kid bounced a ball or something off my door. Then I heard bam again, and my sister started yelling, "What the hell is that?" Just as I was about to get up and go see what was going on, bam. I heard screaming, and then a man's voice yelling, "Get the fuck up!" I started panicking, so this part might sound kinda fucked up. But since I have no clue what was going on or who was the person, I slowly closed my door, blocked it with a dresser, sat on the floor in front of the dresser, and called 911. In my state of mind, I thought it would be better to get the police over ASAP instead of risking my life even further by running into an unknown situation. Maybe this intruder didn't know there was a third person there? Anyways, I told the operator someone broke into my apartment and sounded like he was threatening my sisters and that the police needed to come quick. The operator asked me a lot of questions about how many or what the intruders looked like, but of course I couldn't say because I was still laying in my bed when it started. While I was speaking with a 911 operator, I could hear a guy's voice asking, "Where is your sister? She doesn't know what I had to do for her. I love her." I heard more screams, and then I heard, "She's in the room." At that point, my heart starts beating triple time. I don't know why they told this person where I was, maybe just out of pure terror, maybe getting me back for not coming out of my room to check on the situation. But the next thing you know, my bedroom door was being kicked hard. So hard, I actually thought I started sliding across the floor. The intruder stops kicking my door and says, "If you don't open the door right now, I'm killing everybody." I was so damn scared, literally crying, begging, and asking the 911 operator where the police were at. The whole ordeal was about 5 minutes, but in a situation like this, time slows way down, and it seemed like it went on for hours. I guess the intruder must have heard me talking to the 911, because all of a sudden he stopped and took off running out of the apartment. I was still on the phone crying with the door shut, and one of my sisters knocked and said it was okay to come out now because he was gone. I opened my door and was like, "Who the fuck is he?" They said, "Jack." I couldn't believe it. In broad daylight, Jack kicked in my door with a sawed-off shotgun. and threatened to kill my sisters and myself. The police ended up catching him about a week or so later. During this time, I found out through the police report that there was a previous incident that occurred with Jack, a couple weeks before my incident. The police were called because someone was shooting a gun in the air. When the police arrived, they found Jack holding the gun. They asked why, and Jack said because someone broke into his apartment, stole his weed, and cut the tip of his tongue. Not kidding. The police just issued him a ticket. Anyways, I actually helped catch him by giving them one of his family members' address that I found in the phone book, and they caught him headed to their house. He confessed right there, but after he was arrested, he pleaded not guilty, but ended up taking a plea deal and only ended serving 5 years in prison. I moved to a different state after that, and even scarier part is, I found out that when he got released, he moved into a halfway house literally right down the street from my old apartment, where he kicked in my door. 11 years have passed, and I still don't feel completely safe. I feel at any moment I could run into him randomly or hear my door being kicked in again. I keep constantly moving. I change my number every year. I carry pepper sprays and tasers with me everywhere I go, and I never go to bed without checking if the doors and windows are locked tight. I still even put up a chair under the doorknob before I go to sleep at night. So Jack, who tried to kill me and my family, you're a piece of shit. I wish your psychotic ass would have run away in prison. I hope to never, ever, ever meet you again for the rest of my life.